The city had stood for over 1,000 years. Its walls had defied empires. Its towers had watched generations rise and fall, and its streets had echoed with prayers in times of peace and screams in times of war. Constantinople was not just a city, it was a world. But in the spring of 1453, that world stood on the edge of extinction. Inside the massive stone walls, an unnamed defender walked the ramparts before dawn. He was not a general, not a noble, not a commander written in history books. He was an ordinary man, born within these walls, raised beneath their shadows, and now preparing to die defending them. Below him, the Bosphorus lay dark and still, while in the distance, the Ottoman camp flickered with thousands of fires, stretching as far as the eye could see. For weeks, the city had been under siege. The Ottoman cannons, the largest the world had ever seen, had shaken the ground day and night. Each thunderous blast cracked ancient stones that had once seemed unbreakable. The defender remembered when these walls were believed to be blessed, protected by God himself. But now, dust fell with every impact, and faith alone felt painfully fragile. At sunrise, the bombardment resumed. The ground trembled violently as cannonballs slammed into the outer walls, sending chunks of stone crashing into the moat below. Smoke rolled through the air, mixing with the smell of burned wood and iron. Inside the city, civilians huddled in churches, whispering prayers, clutching icons, and waiting for either salvation or the end. The defender took his position along a weakened section of the wall. His hands were blistered from days of labor, hauling stones, repairing breaches, dragging wounded men away from collapsing towers. Sleep had become a distant memory. Hunger gnawed at him constantly. Supplies were scarce, hope even scarcer. Yet still he stood. By mid-morning, the Ottomans advanced. Waves of soldiers surged forward, their war cries echoing across the fields. Arrows darkened the sky. Drums beat steadily, like a heartbeat announcing the city's final hours. The defenders fought back desperately, pouring boiling oil, hurling stones, firing crossbows until fingers bled. Every meter of ground was paid for with blood. The first breach came shortly after. A section of wall finally gave way, collapsing in a cloud of dust and smoke. The defender watched as enemy soldiers flooded through the gap. Panic rippled through the ranks, but retreat was impossible. There was nowhere left to run. Behind them lay families, homes, memories, everything they had ever known. Street fighting erupted inside the city. Narrow alleys became killing grounds. The defender moved through familiar streets, now transformed into chaos. Marketplaces turned battlefields, churches echoing with cries instead of hymns. He saw neighbors fighting beside soldiers, old men clutching spears, young boys carrying water and messages through the smoke. By afternoon, resistance was collapsing. Flags were torn down, towers fell silent. The sound of bells, once calling the faithful to prayer, rang wildly, signaling despair. The defender found himself wounded, blood soaking into his armor, yet still moving forward. Each step felt heavier than the last. As evening approached, the city finally broke. Ottoman forces poured in from multiple directions. Fires spread uncontrollably. The sky darkened with smoke. The defender climbed a small rise and looked back one last time at Constantinople. He saw the domes, the walls, the streets of his childhood, now shattered, burning, conquered. In that moment, he understood the truth. This was not just the fall of a city, it was the end of an era. The Byzantine Empire, heir to Rome, guardian of ancient knowledge, bridge between East and West, was gone. As night fell, Constantinople belonged to a new power. History turned its page. The defender's fate was sealed, his name forgotten, but his experience reflected thousands like him, ordinary people caught inside extraordinary moments. Their lives marked the exact second when the medieval world ended and a new age began. The walls still stood in places, scarred and broken. The streets were silent now, except for the crackle of fire and distant footsteps of conquerors. And though the city would live on under a new name and new rulers, the Constantinople that had existed for 1,000 years vanished forever on that day in 1453.